The diplomatic hall of the Zytharian mothership gleamed with bioluminescent panels, casting an ethereal purple glow across the assembled dignitaries. Oscar Martinez stood at parade rest beside Ambassador Daisy Chen, his standard-issue body armor feeling suddenly inadequate in a room full of beings who could manipulate gravity with their thoughts. "Remember," Daisy whispered, adjusting her translation collar. "Queen Vex era values directness above all else. No human pleasantries." Oscar nodded, his eyes scanning the perimeter. 3 years, as a diplomatic security officer, had taught him that peace talks were often more dangerous than battlefields. The Zytharians were humanity's first contact with an advanced civilization, and this summit would determine whether Earth joined the galactic consortium or remained isolated in its corner of space. The Queen entered, and Oscar's breath caught. Vexara was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with iridescent scales that shifted between gold and crimson. But it was the small figure clutching her taloned hand that held his attention, a child, no taller than Oscar's waist, with oversized eyes that held an unsettling intelligence. "Prince Kael," Daisy murmured. "Her only heir. The Zytharians reproduce once every century." The negotiations began smoothly. Daisy was brilliant, weaving trade agreements and cultural exchanges with practiced ease. Oscar maintained his vigilance, noting the positioning of the Zytharian royal guards, the exit protocols, the subtle tensions in body language that transcended species. That's when he saw it. A server, one of the human staff, moved with fractional wrongness. The tray tilted at an odd angle. Oscar's combat instincts screamed before his conscious mind could process the threat. "Bomb!" he roared. Everything happened in heartbeats. The device tumbled from the tray, a compact sphere of human-made explosives designed to bypass Zytharian energy shields. Prince Kael stood directly in its path, frozen in childlike confusion. Oscar didn't think. His body moved on pure instinct, closing the 15-meter distance in seconds. He crashed into the small prince, wrapping his arms around the child as he twisted his armored back toward the explosive. The detonation was thunder and fire. The blast wave lifted Oscar and Kael together, hurling them across the chamber. Oscar's armor absorbed the shrapnel that would have shredded the unprotected prince, but the kinetic force shattered his ribs like kindling. He hit the wall hard enough to crack the bioluminescent panels, but his grip never loosened on the trembling child in his arms. Pain whited out his vision. He tasted copper, but through the haze, he heard Kael's rapid, chittering breaths. Alive, conscious, unharmed. "Stay down," Oscar gasped, positioning his body as a shield even as his vision tunneled. The aftermath was chaos. Zytharian guards subdued the would-be assassin, a human extremist who'd infiltrated the delegation. Medical teams swarmed, but Oscar remained conscious just long enough to see Queen Vexara's face as she reached her son. The expression transcended species. It was pure, primal, motherhood terror, transforming into relief, then into something fierce and ancient. "You," she breathed, her translator making her voice sound like breaking glaciers. "Human." Then, darkness took him. Oscar woke 3 days later, in a medical bay that seemed grown rather than built. Daisy sat beside his bed, her face haggard with exhaustion and relief. "You're an idiot," she said, but her voice cracked. "A certified, grade-A idiot." "The prince?" Oscar croaked, unharmed. "Thanks to you." Daisy leaned back, something complicated crossing her features. "Oscar, we need to talk. The Queen wants to meet with you. Alone." An hour later, still moving gingerly despite the Zytharian regenerative medicine accelerating his healing, Oscar stood before Queen Vexara in her private chambers. Prince Kael peeked from behind his mother's leg, those large eyes fixed on Oscar with unmistakable recognition. "You shielded my son with your body," Vexara said without preamble. "You, who knew him for mere minutes. You, whose species we had barely acknowledged. You sacrificed yourself without hesitation." "It's my job, Your Majesty," Oscar replied carefully. "To protect." No. The queen's tail lashed once, a gesture Oscar had learned meant emphasis. Your job was to protect Ambassador Chen. My son was not your responsibility. She moved closer, and Oscar fought the instinct to step back. Among my people, such an act creates Takesh, a bond of life debt that cannot be dissolved. You are now Kale's Shikari, his shieldkin. Oscar blinked. I don't understand, Your Majesty. It means, Vexera continued, her voice dropping to something almost tender, that you belong to us now. To him. To me. The consortium laws allow me to claim you as part of my household, as Kale's guardian. It is my right and my honor. The implications crashed over Oscar like a second explosion. Leave Earth. Leave humanity. Become part of an alien royal family. You're asking me to... I am not asking. Oscar Martinez. The Queen's tone held command, and something else, hope. Perhaps. I am offering. Humans are young, impulsive, fragile, but you are also brave in ways that shame species 10,000 years your senior. Kale will need that bravery. I will need that loyalty. Prince Kale chose that moment to emerge from behind his mother, approaching Oscar with deliberate steps. The child reached up and placed a small, scaled hand on Oscar's. The touch sent a tingling warmth through Oscar's arm, some kind of empathic resonance, he realized. He felt the child's gratitude, wonder, and something like affection blooming despite the language and biology that separated them. Your Ambassador Chen has already negotiated the terms, Vexara said softly. You will retain your human citizenship. You will serve as cultural liaison between our peoples. But you will stand as Shikari to the heir of the Zytharian throne. You will be the first human to hold rank in a consortium species. Oscar looked down at the small hand in his, then up at the Queen, whose world he'd changed with a single, selfless act. He thought of Earth, of the future, of the bridge his choice could build. When do I start? He asked. Queen Vexara's scales flashed brilliant gold, the Zytharian equivalent of a smile. You already have, Shieldkin. You already have. End.